What's good, YouTube? It's Rick the Fox Kid here, and I've got a deck profile for Dragon Ruler. It's an update to the one I posted last month. Deck's evolved quite a bit since I posted that video, so like things have changed, like plant engine's been more or less dropped, no troopers or anything, pretty much just make sure you don't die to Crimson Blader, and there have been a bunch of variants running around, particularly the Blue Eyes variant. I pretty much I've tried the Blue Eyes version, I like it, but ultimately I decided to not go with it for this build, solely because the Blue Eyes and White Stones, aside from being like fodder and like draw power, they really don't do anything for the deck. Whereas like if you opt to go with like hand traps or like the debris build, those can actually do things, and that's why I prefer it like that. I just think it's more consistent. Gives up a bit of the speed, but overall I think it's pretty good. And yeah, so this is pretty much an update. So yeah, let's get into it. 3 Blaster. I decided to stop doing that rarity downgrade idea I mentioned in the last one, because after testing it, it really didn't make a difference. So yeah, 3 Blaster, 3 Redox, 3 Tempest, and 3 Tidal. And you got 2 Debris Dragon, 1 Corseska, 3 Max C, absolutely amazing in the mirror match, also really good against like Hieratic, Mermail, and things like that. And yeah, so. And then even in the matchups where it's not that great, you can still pitch it with Redox or summon it with Debris Dragon, make an Iron Chain, things like that. 1 Swiss Scarecrow, this is mainly to stop OTKs, or if you get hit by a Blader, you can just sit on a Scarecrow. And 1 Trigon. This was run by Billy Brake at the ARG circuit. For those of you that don't know why it's used, it has nothing to do with its effect. It's the fact that it's a level 3 target for Debris Dragon, and it's also a fire, and it's a dragon, which means you can pitch it with Blaster, you can search it with Blaster, you can send it to the graveyard with Dragon Ravine, just anything. It's an easily searchable target for Debris Dragon, thus you make Ancient Fairy and Black Rose, and it's a million times better than Card Trooper. So yeah. And then my last 2 monsters are 2 Flamvelguard. I will go into why I run 2 as opposed to 1 in a minute. That's the monster lineup's 22, and aside from Maxi and Scarecrow, they're all dragons. But they can all be banished by something, because Redox can banish the Earth. So for spells, I run 12. They're 3 DDR. A lot of people opt for either 1 or 2 DDR. I like 3 just because it's a really great card, and it's just it makes it so you can make plays without wasting resources, which in this build where you don't have the extra resources of Blue Eyes and White Stone, that's really helpful. People usually opt for 1 or 2 because from what I've heard, it's just with Vanny's Empties running around, it's a really easy target for it, and that does kind of suck. So ultimately, I don't know how concerned I am about that, just because the deck in general is easily susceptible to Vanity's Emptiness. So ultimately, if I did start feeling that 3 DDR was too much, I would drop 1 for maybe an MST or maybe Terraforming, just because Ravine is that important to the deck. But that's just me. 3 Ravine, as I said. I was running 2 in the last build. Pretty much everyone's realized that 3 is kind of important now. Now here's where I diverge from normal Dragon Ruler builds, because I usually run cards of consonants. I instead, if I find out where they went, I think it's hiding back here. Yeah, oops. I run 3 Dragon Shrine. This is the thing for the Blue Eyes structure deck where you send a dragon from the deck to the graveyard, and if it was a normal dragon, you can send another one. This is why I run 2 Flamvelguard, because you can pitch, because at its best, you pitch Flamvelguard, and then you pitch whatever dragon ruler you want. At its worst, you just pitch whatever dragon you need at the time. So it's at its worst, it's a Foolish Burial. I like this over Cards of Consonance, just because it lets me grab whatever dragon I need at the time, and since you can use the graveyard pretty much as your second hand, this is pretty much a rota for the deck, and it also adds fuel for the dragon rulers. I was trying 3 Flamvelguard as opposed to 2 Flamvelguard, 1 Corseska, and you really don't need the three guards for it. And just adding the 1 Corseska just makes it consistent, or like just gives you more options. So, I mean, it works fine with 2 Flying Velguard. Even just using it as a basic Foolish Burial is not bad. It's like, I just prefer this over Cards of Consonance because I feel it's, like, this is also almost always live. Cards of Consonance, you've got to have, of course, Seska or, like, any tuner in your hand, which generally you need Ravine to work with. This works on its own. And some people only like to run 2 just because you can't activate more than 1 in the same turn. I personally don't see that as a problem because people will argue, well, it could get clogged in your hand. You can make the same argument for Sacred Sword at 7 stars. It's just you can only activate 1 of those per turn, but people still run 3, so I don't think 3 Shrine is a problem. So far I've been really liking it, just because it just gives me the choice of whatever I need at the time and just put it there. But yeah, that's probably the biggest difference about my build compared to other Dragon Ruler builds is that I run Dragon Shrine. And then the last 3 trap spells are 3 Sacred Sword. So yeah, my 12 spells are just triple copies of like every one. Like I said, if I were to switch something, I'd switch one DDR for MST or Terraforming or something. Sacred Sword's obvious. And then I run 6 traps, 2 Regeki Break. It's debatable between this and Phoenix Wind Blast. I just like Regeki Break because it actually destroys. The only thing this doesn't really deal with is Stardust, and that I can deal with in other ways. I mean, it also doesn't deal with Dragosack. I guess it's really personal preference. I've also been debating doing 1 Regeki Break, 1 Phoenix Wind Blast, and I think there was a time where I did try 1 each of Regeki Break, Phoenix Wind Blast, and Karma Cut. So it really depends. I may switch to Phoenix Wind Blast eventually. I don't know yet. Return from the Different Dimension, Broken. And this is a proxy because it is not yet released, but upon release, it is definitely going in the deck, and that is 6 cents. This was just announced today as being released in Joey's World next week, and it is going to be limited. So that's absolutely nutsy because the card has been banned in Japan for years just because you call the effect, you call 5 and 6, and at worst you mill 1 to 4 cards. At best you draw 5 or 6, and it's just either way it benefits. So this card's absolutely nutsy and broken. It's the second broken card in the deck. And 2 Emptiness. I did this as a tech choice earlier, and apparently everybody else thought it was a good idea. Maybe not necessarily because I did it, but just because everybody thought it was a good idea. So Vanity's Emptiness is great in this deck because you set up and you sit on it. Extra deck is 2 Dragosack. I actually do 2 Big Eye. One of them is proxied right now because I don't have it on me. I'll probably have it by the time I get to the regional. I run 2 because most people run 1. I don't know why people wouldn't run 2 Big Eye because it is, in my opinion, the most broken Xyz monster in the game. Just because there's a lot of power in just taking something from the opponent. Like, so many matchups that should be difficult or challenging for me, like Battleland Boxer, are not just because I can take the monster with Big Eye. And if they stop the first Big Eye, for me, that's just a huge surprise factor because they won't expect the second Big Eye. And so it's just like, why wouldn't you run 2 if you could? And then Gaia Dragon is just to pierce things, like tokens in the mirror match. And then Synchros are Star Eater, Colossal Fighter, 2 Crimson Blighter, Scrap Dragon, Stardust, Ancient Fairy, and 2 Black Rose. Ancient Fairy opens up so many combos. And Iron Chain. Iron Chains from the Brood Dragon plus Maxi just gives you that option if you need it. And then the side deck, it's for the most part generic, with the exception of I do 3 Electric Virus, which is mainly for, it works, I side 2 against the Mirror and Dragoonity, and then it also works with the 1 Infestation Terminus for Evil Swarm. It's just, I don't have Xyz Encore, and this is my next best option. And Evil Swarm is probably the one matchup I'm actually afraid of, so I side specifically for that just to deal with it. Swiss Scarecrow just to stop OTK-based decks. Dark Hole, because there still are a few decks that are hurt by it. It's just most of the ones I think of that like are common aren't. Like Dragon Ruler doesn't care, Prophecy doesn't care, Evil Swarm doesn't care, and it's just like, but there are those matchups that it does hurt. So Dark Hole. 3 MST. So yeah. Just because they're not main, so side. 2 Debunk, just great game 2 and 3 card. 3 skill drain. The only reason I don't main it is because it's absolutely awful in the mirror match, and there are some other matchups where it just doesn't hurt them. But it just stomps on a lot of matchups, and particularly it stomps on Evil Swarm. So 3 skill drain. And the Transmigration Prophecy, just great against any Grave Reliant deck. So yeah, this entire build is a lot different, or at least it's a lot improved from my previous build, and it's probably just going to keep growing as the format goes on. That's what I love about the deck, is it just keeps changing. So, thanks for watching YouTube, and I'll see you next time. Deuces.